Please subscribe to our YouTube page today at Mr. Positive Live. We're also on podcast streaming platforms like Spotify and on TikTok at Mr. Positive Live. Should you buy an iPhone SE third generation in 2025? That is the question today. We're going to do a little review today of the iPhone SE third generation. Is this a phone worth buying when you've got the likes of the iPhone 16e, this predecessor of this phone, the SE4, whatever they're calling it, the 16e? Should you go to an iPhone 15, iPhone 13 mini? There's a lot of phones that are slightly better than this device, but there is one reason why this phone sells still. Just as of like 2 months ago, Apple still had this on their website before the iPhone 16e was released. This phone was still retail for $449. Okay, Apple was still asking around $500 for a phone that has an iPhone 8 body with the guts of an iPhone 13 or 14. Okay, should you buy this phone in 2025? First off, click on that bell icon, get notified when we go live, do videos about phones, do videos about scam alerts, and things like that. The main question is, what is the targeted demographic for an iPhone SE third generation or a smaller iPhone like this? Who is buying a phone like this in 2025? Well, elderly people, older people, people that like smaller phones, people that prefer smaller phones for their hand, someone that doesn't care about specs so much, somebody that doesn't care about 120 hertz refresh rates, somebody that doesn't care about the latest in 4K video recording and 8K video recording. You know, this is for the minimalistic type people that just want a phone that is reliable. And people know that iPhones are reliable, even older iPhones, going as far back as iPhone 8. This phone here is sharing the same body as the iPhone 8. You do get the same 4.7-inch Retina display. You do get the same Touch ID. You do get the same main camera found on the iPhone 8, but you're getting the case of, you are getting the chipset found in the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 14 with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So yes, the internals of the phone might look the same, but they're really not. Okay, looking closely at the phone, yes, you get your Touch ID. You know, you do have your power button. You do have your power button right here. Turning the phone around, you do have your volume up and down, and you do have your Lightning charging and your stereo speakers on the bottom. Now, this phone is not going to be for everybody, and we know that. But you're still getting solid performance, even in 2025. This phone's been out 3 years, going on 4. It's been turned 3 years this year, and came out in the spring of 2022. And you're getting a decent chipset here. 3.8 gigahertz chipset. You're getting 4 gigs of RAM, which doesn't sound like a lot with phones coming with 12 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs of RAM on Samsung's end. But for something running iOS, you can still do all the latest games. And the people buying this phone aren't buying this phone for gaming. Trust me. They're buying this because they like a smaller form factor. They don't care about 5,000 milliamp hour batteries. So if you're someone out there who's watching this and says, well, maybe I should buy that phone, understand this phone is not going to give you all day battery life. You do have wireless charging. I believe it's 7 watts. You do have, you got to take in some examples here that Apple did cut some corners with this phone. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. What do I like about this phone, first off? Personally, I like smaller form factors. I like smaller phones, okay? I do have big hands, but I do like smaller phones. I do like holding a smaller phone, slimmed down. I don't care about a 6-inch screen. I don't care about a 7-inch screen on a smartphone. I know a lot of people will think, well, in today's society, you got to have a phone with 3 cameras and everything else. I have a 16e, has 1 camera. I'm happy with this type of phone, okay? Now, if you're someone who's budget conscious and you're like, well, should I choose between this or the 16e? Or let's say you already have this phone, maybe you got it a couple of years ago or just recently, don't upgrade. Because, hear me out first, okay? Wait until the 17 Air comes out. iPhone 17 Air will be released, I believe, either next spring or in October this year. Basically, you're going to get one camera, you're going to get a slimmer design, and a more modern design at that matter. The positive about this phone is the price. Walk into Walmart, you walk right out, you've got the full iPhone experience, you're in the Apple ecosystem. This will connect to all Apple Watches, even the Series 10. This will connect to the latest Apple iPads, like the M3 iPad, 13-inch that I have. This connects to all my other iPhones, so it's just as good, really. You do have iMessenger. We have iOS 18.4 on here, so you're getting the latest software. It runs solid, too, and you can play the latest games if you want to give this to a kid. Most of the time, though, parents aren't buying this for their kid. More like this is more of a phone that you're going to use for business use. Businesses might purchase these phones and give it to their workers. Maybe it's their kid's first iPhone, and it just gives them something to play on because it's kind of an emergency device. It could be someone's, grandparents' phone. Maybe they're coming from a flip phone. Maybe they're coming from something like a candy bar, something like a Nokia phone, and they're finally upgrading to their first smartphone. This is what they'd probably get, okay? There are some good things about it. You're getting that snappy processor with that A15 Bionic chip and 4 gigs of RAM. This thing cranks through everything you throw at it. So you don't have to worry about it. Plus, you got Touch ID. Everything loads just as quick as an iPhone 13 under the hood. Facebook loads pretty good on here, depending on your internet connection. As you can see, it's not 120 hertz or 90 hertz. Apple's still using 60 hertz panels on the latest 16E, so you're not really getting anything different there. You're not getting an OLED panel. We'll get into the negatives of the phone in just a few minutes. You can play your latest games like Genshin Impact. You can play Mario Kart on mobile. You do have ChatGPT. You still have Siri. Siri, what's the forecast for Lewiston, Maine? It's still giving you Siri.
The National Weather Service has issued a flood watch. Expect rain today.
There you go. We know it works.
Around 57 degrees, with overnight lows.
We know ChatGPT works on here. We know it doesn't have Apple Intelligence, but that's okay. Okay. With 4 gigs of RAM, you're not going to get Apple Intelligence, but there are ways around that with Google Gemini. You can use Gemini on here. You can use, still use Siri. And, if you're taking photos, that was one of the gripes with the phone. But it does have the capability, if we look closely here, let me just zoom in on this. If you look closely on here, we do have some pretty good settings. So we do have portrait mode. You have your portrait mode, panorama. So you do have your portrait modes. You have your pana right here. You have your simple photo modes. You do have your video modes. This maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. You do have slow-mo, and you do have time-lapse. But you are missing a few areas on this